Have you ever felt trapped in a labyrinth of repeating situations, chasing elusive goals, or sensing an inexplicable void? Perhaps what you're about to hear is that missing piece. Carl Jung believed that nothing in life happens by chance. Once you grasp this, answers to long-standing questions may begin to emerge. Your birth wasn't just the start of your life. It was the unveiling of a profound connection between you and the universe. It holds clues to your true essence, your driving forces, and the challenges ahead. Jung, one of psychology's greatest minds, showed this idea extends far beyond mere speculation. He spoke of the collective unconscious, an invisible web of symbols and archetypal patterns that link our individual existence to something much larger. How often have you ignored signs? How often have you felt misunderstood without knowing why? Perhaps you tried to fill an inner void with success, relationships, or distractions, but nothing truly helped. This persistent unease might have a simple yet profound cause. You're not living in alignment with your true nature, and the key to reconnecting with it lies in the moment of your birth. For millennia, cultures worldwide have believed that this moment reveals crucial aspects of our life's journey, not because everything is predetermined, but because we are part of a grander design. Like the seasons, each carrying its rhythm and meaning, your birth holds a unique energy. It shapes your personality, choices, passions, and even your fears. The problem is, without understanding this energy, you might unconsciously work against it. Jung found that many inner conflicts stem from a disconnect with universal archetypes. These deeply rooted patterns shape how we see the world. Your birth month, he believed, reflects which archetypal forces are most present in you, and thus what strengths and challenges you'll face. Think of it as a compass. Unable to read it, you'll wander in circles. But learning to interpret the signs clarifies your path. Why do some people effortlessly lead, while others shine with creativity or empathy? It's no coincidence. Everyone is born with a specific energy. Some are natural pioneers, embracing challenges and inspiring others. Others are deeply attuned to emotions, natural healers offering comfort and understanding. And then there are those who question life itself, seeking deeper meaning and a spiritual connection. But what happens when you ignore your nature, trying to be someone you're not? Life becomes a heavy struggle, like swimming upstream. It's like planting a sunflower in the wrong soil. No matter how hard you try, it won't flourish. Perhaps you're feeling this now, trying to fit a role not meant for you, while your true potential awaits discovery. Jung believed that true transformation begins when we look inward and confront what we've long avoided. Self-awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, what was hidden becomes visible, and what once seemed threatening starts to make sense. Now is the time to honestly ask yourself, what is my birth month trying to tell me about who I am? Imagine for a moment that your birth wasn't random, but part of a larger plan, where every challenge has meaning and your strengths aren't accidental. The secret is learning to read the signs and use them to shape the life you truly desire. Because everything you need is already within you. You just haven't learned to access it yet. For centuries, great thinkers like Jung recognized that the universe speaks to us through symbols and patterns. In the past, people looked to the stars for answers, but today we can find these answers within ourselves. Have you noticed how certain seasons or months affect you more profoundly? How some months you feel alive and energized, while others you slow down? This isn't coincidence. It's the energy of your birth moment subtly shaping your path. But this doesn't mean your destiny is predetermined. On the contrary, Jung taught that by becoming aware of these patterns, we can break free from repeating cycles and take control of our lives. It's not about predicting the future. It's about understanding yourself better and using that insight to make conscious choices. Before we continue, ask yourself one crucial question. What are you seeking? You might not know the answer yet, but by the end of this journey, you'll see yourself in a new light. You'll understand that everything you've experienced, joy and pain, victories and setbacks, was part of a greater order. And when you grasp this pattern, even the darkest moments will reveal their lessons. So if you've ever felt something within you waiting to be discovered, lean into that feeling. What you're about to learn could be the key to unlocking your hidden potential. As Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Now is the time to take the wheel. Have you ever felt caught in an invisible loop? As if no matter how much you grow, you always return to the same place? Perhaps it's a relationship that never quite works out, a job that seemed perfect but left you disappointed, or a persistent feeling of detachment, as if the world moves in one direction while you quietly drift in another. If this resonates, you're not alone. Millions are stuck in this cycle, unaware of why. But Jung left us a profound clue. What you call fate might actually be part of a cosmic dance. And you're not just a dancer, you're also the choreographer. Jung believed the patterns shaping our lives aren't random or meaningless. They're part of a deeper connection between the individual and the universe. He likened human life to a river, flowing through rocks, bends, and obstacles, always finding a way forward. But the river's flow isn't accidental. It's shaped by forces both within and around us, often invisible, yet leaving their marks. One such mark is the moment of your birth. And it's not just about planets or moon phases, it's something deeper. It's the archetypal energy that peaked the moment you took your first breath. Consider Anna, a 48-year-old literature teacher whose life on the surface appears peaceful. She has a stable job, a modest home, 2 adult children, and a supportive husband. But within Anna lies a burden few see. Since her 20s, she has constantly felt like she's racing against time, pursuing an ideal that always seems just out of reach. Every time things go well, something knocks her off course. A challenging boss, an unexpected financial setback, or worse, that familiar feeling of not being good enough, making her doubt her own achievements. Why does everything feel so hard, she wonders. Am I destined to live this way forever? Anna doesn't know that part of this lifelong struggle is intricately linked to the energy of her birth month, April. Born in a month of fire, Anna carries the archetypal energy of pioneers and conquerors, driven to act, create, and lead. But as Jung reminded us, every energy has its shadow. In Anna's case, this shadow manifests as impatience and harsh self-criticism. She constantly feels the need to be on the move, always doing more, yet it's never enough. This pattern is deeply embedded in her unconscious, shaping how she responds to challenges. And here's a crucial insight. Anna isn't doomed to repeat this cycle forever. Jung teaches us that we have the power to transform these patterns by making them conscious. Anna can learn to balance her drive for action with moments of stillness and reflection. She can come to understand that she doesn't need to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders, and that true strength sometimes lies in knowing when to stop. This is the cosmic dance, speaking of equilibrium between the opposing forces living within us. Now consider Roberto, a 57-year-old man who spent his entire career in engineering. He's the classic provider, a man who always put the needs of others before his own. From a young age, he believed success was measured by financial stability and professional respect. And for years, this belief served him well. He built a solid career, raised his children, and secured his family's future. But now, with retirement looming, he feels hollow. The accomplishments he once prided himself on now seem empty. He begins to question the meaning of everything he's done. Roberto was born in May, a month associated with the pursuit of stability, security, and a bridge between the material and the spiritual. For most of his life, he lived in alignment with the positive energy of this month, creating a strong foundation for himself and those he loved. But like all energies, this one has its shadows. For Roberto, the shadow expresses itself in an excessive need for control and a deep fear of the unknown. Now, facing the existential void that retirement brings, he realizes he spent so much time building a secure life that he forgot to ask himself, what truly makes me happy? Jung said that the unconscious always finds a way to express itself, whether through dreams, emotions, or life events that seem beyond our control. In Roberto's case, the emptiness he feels now isn't a failure. It's an invitation to explore a part of himself he long ignored. He needs to learn to let go of control, acknowledge that not everything can be planned, and, most importantly, trust that unexpected changes can bring beauty. Do you see the connection between these stories in your own life? Perhaps you too are walking a path that once felt right, but now it doesn't reflect who you truly are. Perhaps you've ignored signals from your body, mind, or heart until they became impossible to overlook. But here's the good news. It's never too late to rewrite your story. The cosmic dance Carl Jung described isn't a prison. It's an opportunity for self-discovery. When you understand the energies at play in your life, you can begin to harness them for your benefit. If, for example, you were born in January, you might realize your leadership instinct doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. If you were born in July, you might understand that your deep empathy doesn't have to drain you. It can be a powerful force if managed wisely. Jung often said that self-awareness doesn't free us from life's difficulties, but it gives us the tools to face them with wisdom. When you begin to recognize patterns in your life, something profound happens. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as the author of your own story. What once seemed impossible to change suddenly begins to make sense, and you realize you have the power to make different choices. Recall a moment in your life when everything seemed to fall apart. Perhaps it was a divorce, a job loss, or a health crisis. In that moment, you probably asked yourself, why is this happening to me? But now I invite you to look at those moments from a new perspective. What if they weren't punishments, but invitations? Invitations to explore parts of yourself you'd ignored and to grow in ways you never thought possible. The cosmic dance of life isn't about avoiding difficulties. It's about finding balance between navigating challenges and learning from them. And that balance begins when you understand the energy that has been with you since your birth. It doesn't matter if you're 30, 50, or 65. Self-awareness has no expiration date. The deeper you're willing to dive into your inner world, the closer you'll become to living a life aligned with your true purpose. Are you ready to look within and learn what energies are guiding your path? Because from the moment you make that choice, the cosmic dance will stop being a mysterious force and become your greatest ally. And in the next part, we'll explore how to recognize these specific energies and use them to transform your reality. After all, as Jung said, the unconscious always speaks to those who are willing to listen. Have you ever considered how much the environment you were born into shapes who you become? Not just the physical place, but the very time, the season, the weather, the quiet or noise of that specific moment. All of it became part of an invisible story you carry within you. The moment you were born, the world around you was in motion. And every detail, from the sunlight to the wind or rain tapping at the window, helped to form your very first impression of existence. This moment was far more than just a biological event. It was a quiet invitation into a unique and deeply symbolic journey. Carl Jung believed that the collective unconscious isn't mystical, but a psychological reality that unites all humans through universal symbols known as archetypes. And your birth was the genesis of this connection. The moment you took your first breath, it was as if an invisible thread extended between you and the universe, linking the outer world to your innermost emotions. Most people don't realize that if we don't understand this connection, we can spend our entire lives ignoring the signs that subtly guide us toward a more fulfilling path. So, pause for a moment and reflect. Are you living the life you truly want to live? Or are you stuck in a version of life shaped by expectations that are not your own? This feeling of disconnect might very well be due to your unawareness of the pattern that silently shapes your path. Jung once said that when we ignore the messages of the subconscious, it finds other ways to speak, through dreams, illness, or repeating life situations. So, if you find yourself facing the same difficulties again and again, or feel like you're constantly fighting something invisible, perhaps it's time to listen to what your very birth is trying to tell you. Consider Pedro, a man who for years believed he was on the right path. He built a successful career as an executive in a large company, earned a good salary, and commanded respect from his colleagues. But just as he was about to be promoted to director, something unexpected happened. He had a panic attack. Everything he thought was under his control began to crumble within days. Suddenly, the job he once loved became unbearable. Without understanding why, Pedro found himself on the verge of walking away from it all. So, what caused this sudden breakdown? Pedro was born in September, a month closely associated with the archetype of perfectionism and the search for order. From a young age, he was taught to be responsible, fulfill his duties, and strive for excellence in everything he did. And for a long time, this energy served him well. However, the shadow side of this archetype, which he had ignored his entire life, eventually took its toll. Pedro was so self-critical that he never allowed himself to celebrate even his biggest achievements. He always found something that could be done better. This constant pressure built up over time, and eventually it had to release. Now think about your own life. How often have you suppressed your emotions because you believed it wasn't the right time to deal with them? How often have you pushed forward, even when something inside told you something was off, simply because the world expected you to remain strong? This mindset might seem necessary, but Jung warned us. What we suppress doesn't disappear. It just hides, waiting for the opportune moment to emerge. And more often than not, that moment comes during a crisis. But it doesn't have to be that way. Self-awareness can turn a crisis into a turning point. In Pedro's case, when he finally sought help, he realized he didn't have to give up his career. He just needed to change his approach to it. He learned to be more compassionate with himself and to acknowledge his accomplishments without demanding perfection. By understanding that the archetype of perfectionism has two sides, the drive for excellence and the paralyzing self-judgment, he was able to bring his energy back into balance. And as a result, Pedro not only recovered, but also became a more empathetic and effective leader, because he now understood what it meant to acknowledge both his own limitations and those of others. Which brings us to an important question. Which archetype is silently guiding your life? Don't underestimate the power of knowing. Some people are born with the energy to lead and forge new paths, like those born in January or April. Others, like those born in July, are highly sensitive to the emotions of others, a gift that, if not managed, can lead to emotional exhaustion. And those born in December often carry a bubbling, optimistic energy that inspires others, but they can go astray if they rely too much on external validation. Now consider your own birth month. How has it influenced your decisions? Are you living the light or shadow side of your archetype? Share your thoughts. Perhaps you, like Pedro, have felt patterns in your life that are yet to be explored. But don't be afraid. Becoming aware of these patterns is the first step toward transforming them. Jung believed that self-awareness is like exploring a dark house with a flashlight. You must be willing to shine a light on the corners you usually avoid. And one of those corners might be a belief system you inherited from the environment you were born into. If you grew up hearing that success only matters when it's achieved through struggle and sacrifice, you might have internalized this as an absolute truth. But ask yourself, is that truly what you want for your life? This is where reflection matters. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what beliefs have I never questioned? Perhaps you've always thought you needed to be strong all the time. Perhaps you believe you don't deserve rest until you've achieved every goal. These beliefs often have roots in the archetypal energy of your birth month. But that doesn't mean you're tied to them forever. The true power of self-awareness lies in recognizing these influences and choosing what to do with them. Imagine this scenario. Helena, a 52-year-old woman, believed her entire life that true love required sacrifice. In every relationship, she prioritized her partner's needs over her own. This led to a recurring pattern of unbalanced relationships where she ultimately felt drained and unfulfilled. Helena was born in February, a month associated with the archetype of empathy and emotional healing. The light side of this energy made her a wonderful listener and a source of comfort for those around her. But the shadow side, neglecting her own needs, subtly undermined her self-worth. It was only when Helena became aware of this pattern that her life began to shift. She learned that true empathy must start with herself. She understood that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, it was an act of self-love. And most importantly, by taking care of herself, she became even better at supporting others, this time in a healthy way. Helena's story is a powerful reminder. The archetypes we carry are not chains, but opportunities. If you feel stuck in a cycle that keeps repeating, ask yourself, what is this experience trying to teach me? Jung believed that healing begins when we stop seeing our difficulties as enemies and start seeing them as teachers. Before moving on to the next part of this video, I invite you to reflect in the comments. What patterns have you noticed in your life that might be connected to your birth month? Don't underestimate the power of self-exploration. By sharing your experiences, you might find that others are on a similar path, and together you can find new ways to grow. Remember, every archetype has its purpose. If you learn to work with it consciously, it becomes your ally, not a burden. In the next part, we'll explore how you can use these archetypes to bring true transformation into your life and turn your shadows into sources of strength. As Jung said, where your fear is, there is your task. Now imagine sitting on a train that seems to be traveling in a straight line, only to realize there are hidden detours along the way. You think you're in control, but with each new season, you find yourself arriving at destinations you never planned. Sound familiar? The feeling of living by a routine, yet somehow a greater force is pulling you along a path you never consciously chose. If you've ever wondered why certain cycles repeat in your life, in relationships, at work, or even in your emotional world, you're about to understand something fundamental. None of it is accidental. Jung said, the unconscious does not just influence our decisions. It creates patterns. And if we ignore them, they will return us to the same point again and again. But what does it truly mean to recognize and break a pattern? Let me share the story of Mariana, a 38-year-old woman who found success in marketing. From the outside, her life seemed perfect. Stable income, frequent travel, and an enviable social circle. But there was one area in Mariana's life that resembled a minefield: romantic relationships. Over the years, she had several passionate, promising relationships, but every single one ended in heartbreak and disappointment. From her partners, she constantly heard the same phrase: "You're amazing, but something isn't working." Over time, Mariana began to believe the problem was her. But during a therapy session rooted in Jungian psychology, she made an unexpected discovery. Her therapist asked, "What is the common thread in all these relationships?" At first, Mariana listed her partner's flaws: lack of commitment, betrayal, emotional detachment. But as she looked deeper, she saw something uncomfortable. The only common thread was an unconscious fear of rejection. Since childhood, Mariana believed that to be loved, she had to be perfect. This belief was so deeply ingrained that she subconsciously gravitated towards partners who reinforced it, repeating the same cycle of pain. This moment of clarity changed everything. Jung taught that when we bring what's hidden in the unconscious to light, we gain the power to transform it. For Mariana, this meant rewriting her inner narrative. She began to notice when she was setting herself up for acceptance, and for the first time, established clear boundaries. The result? Instead of chasing approval, she started asking herself, what do I want from a relationship? Within months, everything shifted. She met a partner who respected her for who she was, without demanding perfection. How often have you felt trapped in patterns you seem unable to control? It could be a job that always ends in disappointment, a friendship that inexplicably falls apart, or a constant cycle of overthinking that leaves you feeling stuck. These cycles are not coincidences. They are signs that something within you demands attention. Jung called this the process of individuation, a journey to integrate all parts of yourself, light and shadow, to become who you truly are. Consider this striking statistic. According to a Harvard study, 80% of people unconsciously repeat familiar patterns in their romantic and social relationships without even realizing it. This doesn't mean they're doomed to fail. It means they're caught in a kind of emotional autopilot. But the good news is that autopilot can be turned off. And once it is, the real journey begins, a conscious journey. The study revealed something important. When people become aware of their behavioral patterns, they can change their lives, not just their relationships, but their mental well-being and sense of self-worth. Now ponder with me for a moment. Could it be that the pattern you're living now is the next one to be broken? When was the last time you asked yourself if the choices you're making are truly your own, or just a reflection of something inherited from your environment, your upbringing, or even past emotional traumas? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. You might find that others face the same dilemmas. Deep down, we are all connected by these invisible stories. When Jung explored universal archetypes, he did so not just out of academic interest. He believed that these ancestral symbols in our psyche could serve as keys to deciphering the patterns we live by. One of the most powerful archetypes is the hero, the one who faces difficulties, overcomes them, and returns transformed. But here's what many miss. Before becoming a hero, you must first acknowledge that you have an obstacle to overcome. Many of us spend our lives avoiding obstacles, pretending they don't exist, or convincing ourselves that everything will eventually work out without taking real steps toward change. But true transformation begins the moment we stop running and gather the courage to face difficulties head-on. Carl Jung believed that what we suppress in the unconscious doesn't disappear. It continues to influence us until we consciously confront it. The patterns that shape our lives are not punishments. They are invitations to understand ourselves on a deeper level. When we identify the hidden beliefs that define our decisions, we gain the freedom to choose new directions and purposefully shape our lives. The key lies in consciously integrating our inner opposites. Instead of suppressing our fears or ignoring our insecurities, we can view them as an integral part of our growth. Every person carries both light and shadow, and true maturity comes when we learn to accept and balance both sides. This means revisiting old patterns, letting go of self-doubt, and opening ourselves to new possibilities. Once we realize that we don't have to be subservient to our subconscious, but instead can make it our ally, true transformation begins. Now is the time to make a choice. Will you continue to live by old patterns? Or are you ready to consciously take the reins of your life? The first step is awareness. The second is intentional action. By questioning your inner beliefs and looking at your choices through a new lens, you open the door to deeper self-realization. And remember, where your greatest fear lies, there too lies your greatest potential. The cosmic dance of life awaits you to find your rhythm and dance it with courage.